Voilà, nous sommes ici à l'Eurospace Center, à proximité du Galaxia Business Park, qui est un lieu d'activité, un parc d'activité économique, le seul en Belgique, destiné à accueillir l'investissement et l'innovation en matière spatiale. Nous sommes aussi à proximité du site de l'ESA, ici à Redu, un des 7 centres opérationnels de l'Agence spatiale européenne, l'ESA, dédicacé à la cybersécurité. Galaxia incarne le leadership emblématique de la Wallonie en matière de recherche et de développement spatial. Il combine plusieurs activités telles que le transfert de technologies, les télécommunications, l'observation de la Terre ou bien encore les programmes de navigation par satellite. En outre, Galaxia sert de centre de cybersécurité pour la Wallonie. Il a récemment d'ailleurs créé une école internationale spécialisée dans la cybersécurité, équipée des dernières technologies, dont un cyber range et un démonstrateur quantique quasiment unique à l'échelle de l'Europe. Galaxia a également la chance d'accueillir pour la Commission européenne le centre logistique Galileo. Il s'agit d'un investissement significatif de 13 millions d'euros porté par la Wallonie. La cybersécurité revêt une importance capitale, cruciale, dans le contexte de la numérisation de l'économie et de la société en général. Elle joue un rôle clé dans la sécurisation des données et des systèmes informatiques, dans les hôpitaux, dans les administrations, les institutions ou les entreprises, parmi d'autres exemples. En effet, on le sait, la menace que représentent les cyberattaques est mondiale, elle est réelle, elle est croissante et aucune institution, aucune organisation n'est à l'abri. En concentrant nos activités d'innovation sur la cybersécurité, nous pouvons éviter de nombreux problèmes. En Wallonie, nous avons réuni tous les principaux acteurs de la cybersécurité au sein d'une initiative unique appelée CyberWall, qui mobilise aussi bien les universités, les entreprises, les centres de recherche, les acteurs publics. CyberWall est donc naturellement l'une des principales priorités de notre stratégie de spécialisation intelligence, la S3, à l'échelle de la Wallonie. La Wallonie estime que l'Europe joue évidemment un rôle crucial, un rôle clé dans la coordination de nos efforts de recherche, dans la définition de normes technologiques et sociétales, et aussi dans le soutien au déploiement et à la croissance industrielle. En tant que président du Conseil européen Recherche et Compétitivité, j'ai vraiment l'intention, avec vous, de présenter des conclusions qui soulignent toute l'importance du transfert et de l'utilisation des résultats de la recherche en Europe. Je crois que c'est l'intention même de la conférence d'aujourd'hui et le but est de rapprocher la recherche de l'innovation, de la réalité du monde et des besoins de la société. Merci à vous.
Bonjour, nous voici en région de Bruxelles-Capitale où on est très fiers de soutenir des entreprises et des projets qui sont à la pointe de l'innovation au service des êtres humains. Donc on est ici dans une entreprise qui est exemplative en la matière. Cette entreprise s'appelle Axiles Bionics et on est ici en présence de Monsieur Chorel, Pierre Chorel, qui en est le fondateur. Bonjour Pierre.
Bonjour Barbara.
Alors peut-être que vous pourriez nous expliquer dans un premier temps ce que fait votre entreprise.
Oui, bien sûr. Axiles Bionics est une spin-off de la vraie université de Bruxelles. Nous sommes spécialisés en robotique, en intelligence artificielle et en biomécanique humaine. Et nous utilisons cette expertise pour développer une nouvelle génération de membres bioniques. Et donc le premier focus, c'est d'aider aujourd'hui des personnes amputées d'un membre inférieur afin d'améliorer leur mobilité et leur qualité de vie.
Vous travaillez donc sur des applications digitales pour faciliter la vie des gens. Est-ce que vous pouvez peut-être nous donner quelques exemples de ces applications ?
Oui, bien sûr. Alors, la robotique implique automatiquement l'utilisation de moteurs, de capteurs, mais aussi d'algorithmes utilisant de l'intelligence artificielle pour justement aller vers une personnalisation de ce genre de dispositif. Et ça amène par défaut une meilleure fonctionnalité. Et donc, c'est ce qui induit aussi à terme une meilleure qualité de vie.
Et donc votre travail est un petit peu à la croisée des chemins entre la technologie, l'innovation et la santé. C'est ça finalement un petit peu le digital, l'innovation au service des êtres humains?
Je pense, oui, parce que je pense surtout que dans l'état actuel des choses, ces technologies vont vraiment évoluer vers une personnalisation de la santé. Je pense que c'est une tendance globale et c'est quelque chose qu'on retrouve également dans notre métier. Les prothèses d'aujourd'hui généralement sont figées, immovibles. Ce que nous essayons de faire, en plus de les rendre plus fonctionnels, c'est grâce à l'intelligence artificielle et donc toute cette digitalisation, tout un système de cloud, d'infrastructures cloud, IA, etc., de les rendre personnalisés, autonomes dans l'apprentissage. Et je pense que c'est vraiment le futur.
Donc à Bruxelles, on a mis en place une stratégie de transition économique qui s'appelle Shifting Economy. On a décidé de soutenir les entreprises technologiques innovantes, mais on veut mettre l'accent sur des technologies qui sont au service des Bruxelloises et des Bruxellois, et en l'occurrence, comme la vôtre, au service de la santé. Dans ce cadre, vous avez été soutenu par Innoviris. Vous pouvez peut-être nous dire à quoi ça vous a servi?
Oui, exactement. Donc Innoviris a supporté nos projets depuis ses débuts. Donc tout a commencé à l'université, la vraie université de Bruxelles. Donc tout a commencé avec un projet spin-off d'Innoviris, ce qui a permis de lancer la société. Et puis ensuite, Innoviris a continué à soutenir dans tous les projets de développement, de recherche et de développement pour en arriver jusqu'à un premier produit ici. Ouais.
Alors au niveau européen, vous le savez peut-être, il y a des classements des régions les plus innovantes. Il se trouve que Bruxelles a un prix d'Innovation Leader, qui est donc dans les régions les plus avancées en matière d'innovation et de recherche. Vous le constatez vous-même ?
Je le constate, effectivement, je le vois quand je discute avec d'autres collègues qui ont également leur start-up dans le dispositif médical, dans le medtech, mais aussi dans d'autres branches, effectivement. Et puis c'est vrai que Innoviris est très présente, très abordable dans la discussion, et puis ils ont aussi une connaissance vraiment approfondie de ce qu'on fait, mais aussi du secteur, et ça aide vraiment.
Et donc merci.
Merci à vous.
Et merci à vous de nous avoir écoutés. On était donc dans cette entreprise Axiles Bionics à Bruxelles, une entreprise dont on est très fier et qui est un des fers de lance de l'innovation au service des êtres humains.
Deze zomer mocht ik een bezoek brengen aan ILVO, ons Instituut voor Landbouw, Visserij en Voedingsonderzoek. ILVO past onderzoek toe dat focust op het bevorderen van een duurzame en een gezonde voedselproductie in tal van sectoren. Dit houdt in dat ze geavanceerde technologieën zoals AI en datagestuurde oplossingen integreren in hun werk. Tijdens deze showcase kon ik mij verdiepen in een toepassing voor precisielandbouw. Dit innovatieve systeem maakt gebruik van drones om veld te scannen en een zelfrijdende onkruidbrander te kunnen bedienen, waardoor er dus minder pesticiden nodig zijn. Deze toepassing die benadrukt de combinatie van data, automatisering en AI. En hiernaast is het er uiteraard van groot belang dat we inzetten op training, alvorens we die techniek in de praktijk kunnen implementeren. En ILVO probeert de behoeften van boeren zo goed mogelijk te kunnen begrijpen, zodat die nieuwe technologieën ook heel efficiënt kunnen worden ingezet. Deze technologische vooruitgang die pakt tal van uitdagingen aan in de landbouw van vandaag. Uitdagingen zoals de beperkte ruimte, de invloed van het klimaat en het grote tekort aan arbeidskrachten. Het zijn allemaal aandachtspunten die cruciaal zijn voor het veiligstellen van onze voedselvoorziening in Europa. En waarin Europa zelf dus een heel belangrijke rol speelt. Daarom is het voor ons heel belangrijk dat we binnen Europa komen tot een grotere samenwerking. En die schaalgrootte die Europa biedt, die is nodig om wereldwijd te kunnen concurreren. En initiatieven zoals Horizon Europe en het Digital Europe Program die faciliteren ook die grensoverschrijdende samenwerking en bevorderen innovatie en vooruitgang op dat vlak. En daarom dat wij vanuit de Vlaamse overheid ook heel graag 2 miljoen euro bijdragen aan de Testing and Experimentation Facility voor agri-food. Deze investering in een Europees breed gedragen consortium die zal het mogelijk maken om de kennis die ILVO in zaken AI-toepassingen bezit, om die te kunnen verspreiden over heel Europa. En het nog gemakkelijker te maken voor AI-onderzoek om een weg te kunnen vinden naar het veld. En hiermee tonen wij onze inzet voor technologische vooruitgang, voor kennisdeling en samenwerking in zaken agricultuur aan.
Good morning, everyone. Let me start by welcoming you all very, very warmly. Welcome to the conference with the promising title, Research to Reality, Digital Solutions for European Challenges.
Also, a very warm welcome to everyone who could not be here physically today, but who is following online through the live stream. I want to apologize in advance. I wrote all my texts in Dutch and asked ChatGPT to translate them into English. So if the English is of poor quality, you should blame artificial intelligence and not my own brain. We just watched the opening video setting the tone for the event, the importance of a strong connection between research and digitalization. We saw Willy Boursu, Barbara Trachte, and Jo Broens, who are the three competent regional ministers in Belgium, and they have outlined the framework for today.
Yeah, thank you, Riyad. And this conference takes place under the Belgian presidency. However, the competencies of research and digital innovation are regional responsibilities in Belgium. Therefore, the regions take the lead here. Today, we will discuss to better connect research into digital technologies with actions that aim to establish or deploy digital technologies. And in a European context, this means digital research within the Horizon Europe program and actions from the Digital Europe program. And throughout the day, we will also uncover good practices and recommendations that are important for the future of these programs and European digital policy in general.
Yeah, for that, the organizers, they have put together, I think, a great program for you. Let me briefly go through the first part of the day. Shortly, we will begin with a talk of no one else than the CEO of IMEC. After that, we will have the pleasure of inviting Roberto Viola, who is the Director General of DG Connect. Then we will have Anna Barjacic. We will listen to someone with a keen interest in innovation. She's the CEO of Connectology. She provides services to innovative startups and investors. After those presentations, we will delve a bit deeper into the subject during a very short panel discussion, and after that you will have your first breakout sessions of the day until lunch, which is scheduled at 12:15.
Yes, and in the afternoon we will resume the breakout sessions, followed by a collective gathering for the plenary closing session to conclude the day's discussions. I trust everyone is clear on the agenda, so I only have one more thing. Throughout the day, Axel, who is here at my right-hand side, will follow everything and will summarize the day with her markers, I think. And at the end of the conference, we will take a look at how Axel experienced everything. So for now, I suggest we take a deep dive into it, and we begin immediately with a leading researcher in microtechnology and the CEO of IMEC, a globally renowned research center for the latest semiconductor technologies. I'm referring to Luc van den Hoven. IMEC celebrates its 40th anniversary this year, and Luc has been there for the very, very beginning, starting as a PhD student. A man with a lot of experience, and we couldn't have wished for a better opening speaker. In his presentation, Collaborate to Innovate, How Deep Tech Tackles Societal Challenges, he will underscore the importance of microchips for the entire digital transformation. He will also delve into the importance of the EU Chips Act in this regard. But I will let him tell you himself. Please join me in giving him a very warm welcome. Luc van den Hoven.
Okay, good morning, all of you. It's a great honor for me to give the opening presentation on this event. And I will talk about chip technology and how it enables digital innovation. And so for those of you who are not so familiar with IMEC, at IMEC we're actually probably the world's largest R&D organization in the domain of semiconductor technology and the applications enabled by chip technology. We're with about 5,500 researchers and operating a budget, research budget of around €1 billion per year. Let me start with I think we all realize that we are living in a world with quite a couple of crises. Actually, many crises that are actually coming together. We are living in a world where the geopolitical tensions have been increasing tremendously, and this clearly has a very strong effect on our industry. We're even living in a world where we're faced with some wars, in fact, pretty close to where we live. Who could have imagined that a few years ago? And all of this leads to very big effects, economic instabilities, financial crisis, energy crisis, and all of these crises come like together at the same time. But all of this is actually happening against a background of some really very strong long-term challenges also. We're living clearly in an aging society that is going to put more and more pressure on our healthcare system. A healthcare system that we've experienced can be disrupted by sudden effects, as we saw a few years ago with the COVID crisis. And then probably the biggest challenge of all is in climate change, which is going to have a very significant impact on water availability, on food availability for very important parts on our planet. So I think it is very clear that those huge challenges, we will need deep tech technologies to actually contribute to help addressing some of these challenges. Challenges, as I mentioned, climate crisis, mobility also, health, food shortage. And it's clear that those deep tech technologies that will be required to help addressing those challenges, they basically all build on chip technologies, on semiconductor technologies, the essential enabling technology for all digital applications. Now, for many of those challenges that I mentioned, digital technologies are going to be essential. And I'll just walk through a couple of examples. I will start focusing first on the healthcare sector, where these chip technologies are going to enable enormous opportunities in terms of providing much more sophisticated diagnostics, cheaper diagnostics on the one hand, but also open the path towards personalized medications. And this thanks to the fact that with those chip technologies, we can actually combine, and thanks to the miniaturization capability of those chips, we can kind of integrate kind of full clinical labs on a very small piece of silicon by combining very sophisticated electronics, sensing technology, photonics, microfluidics, in order to manipulate small amounts of liquids on such a chip, to do the sensing, and then to manipulate all the data using very sophisticated artificial intelligence algorithms in order to enable these new generation of diagnostics on the one hand, but also platforms to enable a cost-effective implementation of personalized medical treatment to treat illnesses such as cancer or autoimmune diseases. Just one example where we've seen over the last years the phenomenal evolution thanks to this chip technology and massive data manipulation is DNA sequencing, which is gradually becoming, whereas it was kind of an extremely complex technology a few years ago, it is evolving towards a routine diagnostic technique these days. And this is just the start of many more applications in terms of improving biomanufacturing technologies on the one hand, new diagnostics, and developing platforms for personalized medical treatments. And we're just at the start of an explosion of new opportunities that are enabled through this convergence between nanoelectronics, nanotechnology, and biotechnology. And these are the kind of platforms that will be needed in order to come to more cost-effective, personalized treatments of many of those diseases. But all of these devices, they will generate massive amounts of data, and the medical and pharma industry is therefore going to evolve towards a massive data industry in which technologies such as artificial intelligence will be used very widely. Rather than focusing on the fabrication of massive amounts of generic medical treatments, a pharma company is going to become a data company that will kind of translate massive amounts of data that are generated through personalized diagnostics into a code that will be used to fabricate a personalized individual medicine for a specific patient. Another industry that is going to go through massive revolution and already is going through that at this moment is, of course, the automotive industry. We're evolving towards fully electrified vehicles, but also we're gradually introducing various levels of autonomous driving, for which we will have to install massive amounts of sensors in our cars, which need to be cheap and reliable. Very sophisticated cameras, radars, lidars, hundreds of these kind of sensors, and all of these sensors are going to generate massive amounts of data, which through sophisticated artificial intelligence in order to enable this, we will need to implement enormous amount of compute power in our cars. We will need cost-effective solutions for those sensors with very small form factors, much smaller than the type of sensors that are available today. We will need sophisticated AI in order to and compute power in order to integrate these various levels of autonomous driving in our cars. In fact, the compute requirements to enable this will just explode. And in order to make this a reality, we will have to, the electronic control units in our cars will evolve to kind of supercomputer performance levels. We will for that need the most complex chip technologies, and those will have to be integrated in our cars in a very flexible way so that one can optimize those compute technologies for the various market segments in the cars, and so therefore chipless-based compute architectures are going to be important, and we're working with all the major partners in the total value chain of the car industry in order to make this a reality. And this is important because car manufacturers are facing what is probably their biggest transformation ever. I mean, the car industry is a very complex industry with a very complex value chain, supply chain. Car manufacturers, tier 1s, tier 2s, chip designers, foundries, and the innovation is kind of trickling down and up in this value chain, but as there are so many layers, innovation is kind of slowed down. And what we need to do is bring all those key players in the value chain together so that we can accelerate the innovation process across this value chain. And this is really highly needed because the car industry is facing this very important transition moment, as I tried to explain. We could compare it to like what the phone industry has been faced with, and the disruption that has happened in the mobile phone industry in the early 2000s really has resulted in kind of a squeeze out of all the incumbent traditional players. They've been replaced by some innovative new players such as Apple, Samsung, and some Chinese. Well, the same actually could happen in the car industry, and we see that already happening with the electrification, and so we really have to make sure, and for Europe this of course is extremely important, that we kind of accelerate the innovation process also in the traditional car companies in order to maintain a strong market position in this domain. Now, all of this actually illustrates the importance of digital technology in all of these applications and the importance of artificial intelligence. And it's pretty clear over the last year, artificial intelligence has kind of been all over the news. And in order to enable kind of this evolution in artificial intelligence, I mean, the compute needs to make this happen actually are exploding, and we're just at the beginning. And in order to make that realistic, we will also need much more performant chip technologies in the coming years. So in order to support that exponential increase in data complexity, in data handling, we will need computation that also follows this exponential increase. And that is why we believe that this Moore's law, as we know it since many years, will have to continue. For that, we will need to enable very small feature sizes on our chips, have this more scaling continue. And in Europe, we're enabling this also through the advanced equipment such as ASML. We've been developing a roadmap to illustrate what is the path to continue this scaling, but we will have to combine that also with new heterogeneous integration techniques, combining chips from many technologies into very advanced systems. So with these examples, I wanted to illustrate that chips are basically everywhere in all applications. Basically, all industry sectors are going to require innovation that is enabled through chip technology. And this is a result from a study recently done by BCG, illustrating how some of the key European industries really rely on chip technology, and what the effect is of semiconductor research on enabling these very important industry domains in Europe. Not only semiconductors itself, but also applications such as automotive, healthcare, industry, network. All of these sectors fundamentally rely on the progress in chip technology. 3.3 trillion euro of revenue for Europe, 9 million jobs. So I think the importance of chip technology has become, people have become much more aware of the strategic importance of chip technology in the US, in Europe, in Asia. And as a result of that, it has come really on the political agenda. CHIPS Acts have been appearing everywhere in the US, in Europe, in Asia. And this is extremely important. It's good that the awareness of the importance of chips has increased. And all of these CHIPS Acts, they basically built on two major pillars. One is to ensure secure access to advanced semiconductor manufacturing, but on the other hand, also to ensure technology leadership in such a strategically important domain. Now, these CHIPS Acts are a phenomenal opportunity to create the critical mass that is needed in order to accelerate the innovation in these domains, because the R&D requirements in order to maintain this exponential increase in complexity, they are phenomenal and unprecedented. And so the CHIPS Acts can really help to address these huge challenges. But we have to understand that each region really has its specialization. Some regions are good in very advanced leading-edge manufacturing, others in manufacturing of more mature technologies, other regions are better in design, in R&D. So each region has kind of its unique strengths. And one of the risks, actually, with those CHIPS Acts, and as a result of realizing the strategic importance of those chips, is that politicians may think, we have to control everything. We have to keep this all under control. We have to do everything. Now this, we believe, actually imposes quite some risks, because the technology is so complex, and this desire to kind of do everything, kind of ensure like full self-sufficiency could actually result in a kind of a step back, lead to some mediocrity. We have to combine the best of the best. By all doing it, we cannot have the best in every region. What we believe is that regions should strengthen their strengths and complement each other's mutual strength in order to kind of elevate the ecosystem globally. As I said, we need to combine, in order to realize this phenomenal challenge in terms of address this phenomenal challenge in terms of R&D, we need to combine the best of the best in order to stay in a leading position. So the CHIPS Acts, actually, the philosophy of the CHIPS Acts, we believe, should be to kind of, on the one hand, make sure that regions get the means to strengthen their strengths, but on the other hand, it should also facilitate collaboration among the regions in order to combine the best of the best. So it's not really about deconnecting the regions. It should be about smartly reconnecting the regions in order to make sure that we progress in this domain as fast as possible in order to tackle those huge challenges we're facing. Decoupling would actually lead to duplication of research and manufacturing infrastructure. It would lead to an increase in cost. It would actually slow down innovation, which is the opposite of what the CHIPS Acts are actually striving for. So that's why we're strongly promoting this concept of we need strong collaboration among like-minded countries across the entire value chain. Now, this is also what we're trying to do in Europe. We're trying to kind of bridge this gap from lab to fab by setting up these pilot lines. And here we also want to kind of combine the best of the best we have in Europe in a complementary way. We are partnering with our colleague R&D centers, IMEC, with Fraunhofer, Leti, each working, focusing, specializing on an area of our strengths and bringing that together in kind of by linking these pilot lines, 3 or 4 pilot lines across Europe, and then connecting that with a large number of competence centers spread across all of Europe, because it is going to be so important, as this is such a vital technology, to kind of connect and link, crowdsource all the innovation power that we have available in Europe, connect all the best universities in order to also promote skill development and also lower the barrier for access for universities to advanced design and processing capabilities. CHIPS Acts would also help to kind of connect the value chains more effectively in Europe by connecting the companies higher up in the value chain with the chip innovation process. I talked about the urgent need in the automotive sector in order to enable that. And that's basically what we're trying to do at IMEC, where we are working together with the entire ecosystem by working with many universities, hundreds of universities. What we see as our role is to bridge this, make this connection from lab to fab to industry, do that in an environment, advanced pilot lines, which we built up with all of the leading companies, all of the leading suppliers in this domain. And we have a few very strong ones in Europe, like ASML, ASM, material suppliers like Soitec, and many other material suppliers. And then make available these platforms towards especially startups for whom the access barrier to these high-end technologies is extremely high. And so we have to make sure that we provide low barrier access. In that context, we're working with hundreds of startups, providing them a service to enable access to these advanced technologies and PDKs. So this is what we are trying to do at IMEC, and we're doing that in partnership with hundreds of companies in Europe. We work with all of the key players, but even worldwide, as I try to emphasize, that global partnerships are really essential, and it's very important that we position Europe also as an essential contributor to this global value chain. With this, I would like to conclude my presentation by stating that we feel that we are really at a very pivotal moment in the history of this chip technology and digital technology. We have, on the one hand, we have phenomenal challenges in terms of R&D in order to enable this continuation of this exponential roadmap. But on the other hand, I think we also have phenomenal opportunities to leverage government funded at an unprecedented level. And so we believe that if we do this right, and I think all the minds are there to do this right, we really can make sure that these CHIPS Acts will accelerate the innovation that is highly required in this domain. But we will have to do that in very strong collaboration formats, and this is going to be needed in order to tackle these big global challenges that our world and our planet is facing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Luc. Our next speaker is Roberto Viola. He serves as the Director General for Communications, Networks, Content and Technology at the European Commission. As we heard from Luc, Europe is facing numerous challenges these days, particularly in the technological arena. Now, Roberto's career began as an engineer at the European Space Agency. He later served as a telecom regulator in Italy and now finds himself in the European District here in Brussels. His keynote is titled Research to Reality, Synergies and Digital Policies, and he promises to shed light on the alignment between research efforts and practical applications, as well as digital policies shaping our future. So please welcome Roberto Viola.
So, good morning, everyone. Thank you very much to the Belgian presidency, to my colleagues for having organized this event, and thank you to Luc for this very inspiring talk. So, the title of this event is How to Turn Research into Reality. You heard about the opportunities from Luc, which are many, and there are these recurring buzzwords like chips, artificial intelligence, data, algorithm, but I should add people. And this comes in a moment where the world is extremely unstable. Europe has to face war basically at its doorsteps. The tensions putting big question mark about the capability of optimizing value chains. We did not start this kind of narrative, buy from a certain place, buy there, but we are there. So Europe has to also look at what it means economic security, what it means making sure that our young generations have a future, what it means that we are able also to unlock our capabilities, well understood, in cooperation with others. The reality, so back to reality, is in front of these opportunities, Europe has been losing constantly competitivity. In the last 20 years, Europe is losing some 30–40% in terms of efficiency, competitivity, and more or less the same has been gained from United States. And I think largely this can be reconducted to the fact that Europe has a bit missed the internet revolution, the data revolution. Our industry, our way, our policy has been slow to adapt to the new reality. So also, it's important to understand that Europe, throughout the years, has developed dependencies. A tragic dependency from energy supplied by Russia, technological dependency from technology supplied by China, and depriving constantly key industries in the automotive sector, in the medical sector, in the energy sector from innovation. So this clearly becomes an issue of security, becomes an issue of being relevant in the world. Playing in a team, the team of like-minded countries, but as a player, not simply as a user. That's why the European Commission has introduced the concept of European economic security, which has been well accepted by the European leaders, and has identified few areas where it's really, really important that Europe is strong. Again, strong to be a player. Those areas are the area of advanced technologies, the one you just heard from Luc, so microelectronics, advanced chips, quantum technologies, artificial intelligence, hydrogens, biotechnologies. And the common thread of all these technologies, which define the perimeter of European economic security, is that to be competitive, you need a thriving research ecosystem. You need the best of the best excellence to attract also talents from outside Europe. You need data, you need algorithms, you need, what we have called in our recent AI strategy, the AI factories of the future. And this leads me to the second consideration, so economic security. The second one is Europe is the largest civil program of, when it comes to research and development of the world, which is Horizon Europe. Though we have seen this research to reality translation sometimes doesn't work well. So there is, the question is why it doesn't work well? What is the problem? I think the problem is when you look at those range of technologies I just mentioned in terms of economic security, the point is that it's not the intensity. Of course, funding is important, and Europe has not been shy when it comes to digital funding. If you take, for instance, the recovery program, 100 billion went to digital. If you take Digital Europe, you take Horizon, more than 25 billion are going towards digital. So you might say funding is there and probably needs to be provided even more. But you can continue to provide funding, but if the ecosystem doesn't work, it does not function. If you don't recognize the way to create excellency, to locate excellency and to federate excellence, it does not work. So research to reality, it works only if you can team up the excellencies of Europe and make sure they work together. And this is the other message I would like to give you. Excellency federation, teaming up of minds and infrastructure and research and alliances, it's absolutely important. And of course, funding is necessary, but this levers, the ecosystem. Now, this brings me to the way we are progressively transforming the way we package research and development with opportunities. But before I would go to concrete examples, let me add a third element for your reflection, which is the element of the narrative. Narrative is very important because it's the kind of signal you give to the stakeholders, to the markets, to the world, that you are ready to take a new challenge. And let me make you the most recent example of Mr. Elon Musk announcement that one of these companies, Neuralink, has been successfully prototyping and testing a neural implant. Well, actually, there's nothing new about it. Through the research programs, Horizon Europe, we have been testing neural technologies for disabilities since a long time. And Europe is very advanced on this. But no article in newspapers has mentioned this. No article. No one, when looking at the perspective of artificial intelligence, kind of poses a second and thinks, well, Europe has the fastest supercomputers on Earth. So Europe also is a bit suffering of a self-inflicted narrative, which is we don't dare to dare. And this is something also that we need to address. And again, it's not the intensity of funding, because when you sum up the funding that went in neural technologies, the BRAIN project, we are in excess of 1 billion euros, probably much more than has been invested by the company that make this announcement. It's the way, we actually communicate our ambition and the way we signal that we have an ambition. Because of course, you are well aware that when it comes to ambition in Europe, there's always a but. But what about the rules? What about human-centered AI? What about the data protection? I think this is very important. because we are European, we are proud to be democracies, we are proud to respect the human rights, but also there, we must recognize that now we have done decisive steps in digital technologies to establish ourselves as leaders in terms of the rules. So this is time to say, okay, when it comes to data, platform technology, SI, we have worked for years to set up an ecosystem of rules which are the best of the world. It's now time to turn page and really now deliver on this vision, of human-centered vision, but then to deliver. Now, you might ask yourself, okay, this is all nice words, but what the European Commission is doing about this? The first example I would like to give you is actually the CHIP Act. I don't need to say much of it because Luc has really very nicely described what we try to do. The CHIP Act, the European CHIP Act, I dare to say, is much better than the other CHIP Acts. Luc agrees. Sorry for this little commercial. Why it is better? Because for the reasons that Luc says, it's not that we have taken the money and then started to give it around without any criteria. We have looked at our excellencies. To start with, in the Pillar 1, IMEC, Fraunhofer, Leti, the ecosystem around power electronics. And we said we want to make sure that the rest of Europe, with these competence centers, plays in the same team. And actually, we are not going to spread the money everywhere, but we are going to make sure that there's a clear legacy from this investment, which is research to reality. So from basic research to arrive to pilot production that soon can become production. The second element of the CHIP Act, Pillar 2, is factories in Europe. Europe has this ambition to arrive to 20% of the world production, which might seem to you not much, but it's a big thing, because it means 4 times the present production capability. And you might ask, but why you need the factories in Europe? Well, the answer you had it during COVID, the answer, unfortunately, you have looking at the world. I agree with Luc. I mean, decoupling is not really clever, but de-risking is wise. To minimize the risk, I think you have to choose the right partners, work together, but make sure also, as you say, you can sit at the table and being a player. So we try to attract investments from partners around the world. And as you have seen, a number of partners show the interest, clear interest to invest in Europe, in factories. And when we count all the announcements being done, we are in excess of 100 billion investments in Europe, and that's extremely good. And then the Pillar 3 of the CHIP Act is to federate the demand, which is another element where Europe always a bit struggle. Federate the demand in emergency, but when you look in perspective, not just in emergency. So when you take the automotive sector, when you take telecom, when you take healthcare, which are, I agree, I mean, you Luc said it extremely well, these are the strengths of Europe, robotics. It's also clear that it's a very fragmented industry. There are many different players. And each of them, of course, have an interest for technology, but none of them is a decisive customer. But if you aggregate this demand, then the demand that Europe can have towards the chip industry, it's equally important compared to the demand of the smartphone industry that today drives the production of the most advanced chips. So these 3 elements really bet on our excellencies when it comes to research. Attract investments and factories and direct investment from like-minded partners and work on the demand. It's the new way of delivering policy. So delivering research with policy. And the CHIP Act is the first example in Europe of such a change. The second one, it's artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence, clearly, my very humble opinion is that it's going to shape a new world. It's the era of intelligent machines, and clearly Europe must have a say. Of course, one possibility would have been to go classical style and start, an array of calls everywhere. Instead, we said we want to create two elements around the most advanced artificial intelligence. First, an ecosystem centered around our supercomputers, which, as I said, this has been another example of federating for excellency, are the largest of the world. So around this, and we call it in a kind of a provocative way, AI factories. That means that those machines now are being rolled out. The new one in Germany, for instance, Jupiter, will be an exascale machine, so #1 of the world, assembled in Europe with chips which are designed in Europe. So also in terms of technology, will be a new step. This machine, the machine in Spain, the machine in Italy, the machine in Finland, need to be now upgraded to AI technologies with the latest chips on AI. We will also build all around a very advanced data architecture, and also locate the brains, which does not mean that, everybody has to live around a supercomputer, but the ecosystem of startups, academia, research entities should actually rotate around these factories. Of course, they are not factories, these big machines. Now, the idea, which we are already doing, is to open the supercomputing capacity to startups. Of course, startups can knock at the door of the big tech, but there's a price for it. So if we want an independent innovation and startup ecosystem in artificial intelligence, it's quintessential that we make available the public supercomputing infrastructure we have been developing, which is actually 8 billion investment of Europe. The other element, so these are the AI factories. The other element is Gen AI for EU. So it means looking at generative AI, very large algorithm, and looking all the sectors in which this can be a breakthrough. Healthcare, biotechnologies, robotics, automotive, energy. The list is long. So instead of, again, shooting in all possible directions, to really cluster around policies, algorithm development, and applications to make sure that we can actually make the difference. Make the difference in industries where Europe is naturally strong, is naturally capable. And again, with an idea to have clear KPIs by industry sectors and make sure we deliver. For instance, again, taking an example, look in DNA. DNA is a language. It's a very complex language, very sophisticated language, but it's its own semantics, its own way of communicating, the way, it evolves. So generative AI is particularly suited in DNA sequencing, and the options possibly are limitless. Transporting hydrogen is a challenge, but if you can transport ammonia instead of hydrogen, then it's much simpler. The point is that then you need a catalyst to transform ammonia into hydrogen, which works at 700 Kelvin. So you need a new material that can be synthesized through artificial intelligence. And these are examples that are already running in your ecosystem. So to conclude, I think to bring research to reality, funding is important. And I think we need to make sure that there's continuing funding stream. But then it's also important the ecosystem you create, the ecosystem of players from academia, from startups, and the big European industries that have to wake up and make sure they join the right team. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Roberto Viola, for your interesting presentation. So that brings us to our final speaker of this plenary opening session. As CEO of Connectology, she provides services to innovative startups, investors, and government entities. And additionally, she serves also as an advisor to the World Bank, and she is the youngest board member of the European Innovation Council. I'm referring to Anna Barjasic. According to her, the role of the European Innovation Council is a long-awaited addition to European support programs for deep tech startups and scalers. However, more is needed. And in this way, she hopes for a real impact on the European economy, the environment, and its citizens. And with her presentation, in investors' point of view on digital innovation and deployment of new technologies, she will elaborate on these points. Please join me in extending a warm welcome to Anna Barjasic.
Good morning. It's a real pleasure to be here. Thank you for the invitation. My name is Anna Barjasic. I'm an entrepreneur and investor and also one of the board members of the European Innovation Council. And this is what I would like to start my speech with. I would like to provide you with a brief overview of what European Innovation Council is and what have been our recent activities. As you know, the EIC is the largest European innovation fund with over 10 billion euros for deep tech. And its very ambitious impact has already been reflected in supporting so far a portfolio of a combined valuation of 40 billion euros, including 12 unicorns and 112 centaurs. The EIC fund, since it started its operations, has already deployed 1 billion euros of investments in more than 150 companies. And here is the interesting part. So for every 1 euro invested by the EIC, 3.9 euros were attracted from private investors. Given the topic of this conference, I would like to refer that the EIC has built a strong digital portfolio, and here I want to focus on two buzzword areas, AI and quantum. The EIC portfolio on artificial intelligence includes the whole technological development spectrum, from early applied research on AI all the way to supporting companies in developing specific applications utilizing AI. Since its pilot phase in 2018, EIC has provided 334 million euros in grants for the EIC Pathfinder and Transition projects, developing AI-related software, hardware, or both. All these have worked on the development of various techniques, including machine and deep learning, neural networks, AI algorithms, natural language processing, computer vision, edge computing, quantum computing, virtual and augmented reality, generative AI, and AI chips. And also in line with the new communication on support for AI startups, the EIC 2024 work program includes an EIC Accelerator Challenge call on human-centric generative AI made in Europe with a budget of 50 million euros. In terms of quantum, to overcome strategic dependencies, ensure the future strategic autonomy of the EU, and develop deep tech digital capacities in the EU, EIC has committed to invest 300 million euros in companies contributing to the CHIPS Act objectives. The amount invested through EIC Open and Challenge funding for semiconductor and quantum only in 2023 amounted to 105 million, with at least another 50 million to be allocated in 2024 through a dedicated challenge call on smart edge and quantum technology components. I would now like to address investors' perspective. The role of the EIC and instruments like the EIC is there to address the market failure and de-risk the technologies for private investors. And as you know, most of the investors don't expect money from the European Commission. Moreover, a number of studies show that if the risk of startups and technology reduces, the willingness to invest increases. So it is not enough to provide funding to startups. We need to focus on de-risking technologies, as some of our previous speakers mentioned. So the companies can get funded by investors or maybe even banks. Such companies with de-risked technologies have more chance to find investors, but also clients, and not rely anymore on the support of the European funds. Since the topic of this conference is dealing with how to bring research to reality, I would like to add something else for your consideration. I think mindset is extremely important. In terms of the mindset, and I don't mean here only by researchers' mindset, it's also the mindset of all of us here. It's the policymakers, it's the entrepreneurship support organizations, it's the NCPs and all the other stakeholders that are taking part in the innovation ecosystem. Oftentimes, it's really easy to fall into this bureaucratic frenzy and just focus on the process, not on the results. And we often also rely on excuses such as, it was always done this way, these are the rules, and my favorite is, everyone is just doing their jobs, but no one cares about the results sometimes. So when it comes to this mindset, there is another thing that's really important, and we see it a lot in Europe nowadays. It's grant addiction. This is really important. Grant addiction kills the entrepreneurial mindset we need to bring all this research and innovative technologies to market. Many people in Europe and many organizations in Europe, as you know, are addicted to grants, and I'm sure a lot of us have seen some really remarkable examples of that. The antidote to this is obviously the entrepreneurial mindset and focus on impact, focus on the results. We also need to be very careful how we are going to design, but also very careful how we are going to implement certain mechanisms and instruments to empower this entrepreneurial mindset. If we continue funding research without clear incentives that are linked to commercialization, I don't think we can expect research to become reality. And this is why the European Innovation Council is creating an impact in the ecosystem. It doesn't only give grants, it also has an equity component, and which is directly linked to scale up and commercialization of the innovation and its market entry. We can have the best intentions with our programs and policies. We can allocate a lot of money to run them, but if these instruments and the incentives are not aligned, policy will not generate expected results, and the collaboration that we're calling for, it's not going to generate the expected results. If we nudge entrepreneurs to apply only for grants, they will focus on filling out the timesheets. They're not going to focus on looking for clients or product market fit. If we nudge and have systems in place that enable researchers only to produce papers without having clear incentives to commercialize this research, of course they're going to just continue producing papers, and especially if this number of papers is linked to their career progress. We also cannot assume that all researchers want to be entrepreneurs or have the skills to do so. However, what we should be able to assume is that the researchers are aware that their results matter. And there is someone out there in the ecosystem that is ready and interested to pick them up. This is why it's really important that also research organizations better articulate their role and commitment within the broader ecosystems that span from research to development, innovation, and deployment. Throwing money at the problem is not enough, and some initiatives just keep repeating the same mistakes over and over. So what I think is really important is that we look at the real impact and data from the policies and instruments out there to understand which work and which don't work. So if there is no positive impact of an initiative or an instrument, we need to change it. Success of European policies should not only be measured in the speed and the amount of money deployed, but also in how many innovative jobs were created, how many new companies were created, how much did we contribute to technological sovereignty in Europe, how much did we support to increase European GDP, and what is the real impact of our policies in reducing the geographical gap, the innovation gap that we have in Europe, and also the gender gap. As such, it is really important to align interests and create synergies with other policies and programs and opportunities accessible for all European innovators and entrepreneurs in equal manner. We at the EIC board are doing a huge effort to promote geographical excellence of the EIC instruments, so all European innovators have equality of chance when accessing EIC funds. Let me now finish my speech with a brief summary. To unlock the full potential of translating research into reality in Europe, we must challenge the grant addiction mindset, foster stronger collaboration across the innovation ecosystem, but also across the European Commission units. Insist on equality of opportunity within the innovation ecosystem for all European countries, and embrace the engagement of diverse stakeholders, not excluding any. Because breakthrough innovation can happen anywhere, and Europe can only thrive if it's united and the interests are aligned. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. You can take a seat directly. Yes. Can I invite Luc and Roberto as well to join us on stage? Thank you.
Thank you. We'll take my place here next to you.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Welcome again. Good, maybe before we start the panel discussion, let's have a look at Axel's work on our right-hand side. Interesting how she has represented the content of the three keynote speakers so far, thanks to visual harvesting. So looking forward to see the final result, Axel. Thank you.
Good. Maybe first of all, I would like to delve into something Anna said in her speech. She said we need more entrepreneurship in Europe. I think, Luc, that's something that sounds as magic to your ears.
Well, I think, of course, I think it is really essential. I mean, we're trying to play a role there. I mean, IMEC has incubated about 300 startups in our incubator. We've created about 120 startups in our domain. So I think Anna also referred to it. I mean, we don't lack the creativity and the capability to create startups. I think one of my biggest worry is how do we scale up those startups to really unicorns. And for that, I think we have to make sure that we set up the right instruments also to enable this. If I compare to many of, we sometimes have some of our startups also in the US, and I mean, we don't have a sandhill road as they have in California with massive amounts of private investors. So I think we have to really think, and that's where AIC also can play a very important role, but also the other public investors in combining strengths. I believe that that's going to be very important for Europe to really benefit from the massive fruits that we invest in the R&D.
Yeah. Someone who wants to react, how do we scale up? Roberto?
Well, scaling up is very, very challenging, especially in Europe, because in Europe the capital market has not deep pockets or equally deep pockets compared to the United States. And as I said in my speech, there's a kind of a narrative issue about the risk the companies can take, I mean, the risk the society can take, so everything looks always a bit more complicated. So for me, we should look at the successes when there are successes and ask ourselves why it has been a success. We have been particularly successful in scaling up startups in the payment area, for instance. And I think this is the combination of 2-3 key factors. The first one is that with the single payment area, we managed to create the single market. So it was possible for a startup that then scaled up to address the whole payment market from one or the other country through passporting. That has been very important. The other element which has been very important is that these new startups a little bit disrupted an existing system with the acceptance of people, because it was convenient, I mean, nice in-app applications, and all of this came with the acceptance of people of innovation. And the third important element, once this started to ignite, then those that were a little bit disintermediated started to invest, and this created positive synergy. So this is an example where things went in the right direction. So if these elements are replicated in other industries, I think you can have an acceleration of scaling up.
Okay.
Yeah, because sometimes, Anna, they say with a cliche, Europe is good at regulating stuff, less good at innovation. How do you look at that?
Well, I think it's an interesting criticism or a comment or whatever. I think everyone has a different opinion on that. I think it's always a good mix to have both, right? You can't just allow things to happen by themselves. But also, what I would just like to reflect on an earlier question, I think what is really important here, and I know everyone is complaining, you know, we have a lack of funding in Europe, but then we have the largest, you know, funding program for research and innovation in Europe and things like that. So I think it's really not so much about the lack of funding, right, and all these huge investors that we don't have here, like in the Bay Area or whatever. It's more about de-risking technologies. And I think you have really addressed this well in your keynote, because first of all, we are funding so many research centers, universities, labs, and so on. So why not, for instance, one of these research centers to have, like, commit, because they anyways get this money, to commit to do, let's say, 100 technology assessments for startups per year? How much would that accelerate the market? This is this collaboration that we are discussing about. But then in the end, it comes to the people, their willingness, you know, communication and alignment of interest. So I think this is one way. The second way is obviously creating incentives, especially for investors in Europe, which some countries are doing well, some others not so well.
Okay. We are also talking about the new digital revolution. What are the strengths of Europe in this new digital revolution? Anna, you want to start?
In my view, I think it's, you know, and I addressed it a little bit just in this previous response, I think we have such a fantastic network, again, of these stakeholders, of organizations that are doing unbelievable stuff, like, for instance, IMEC. So I think we need to unleash their potential in interacting with the ecosystem, but this can only happen if we have the alignment of interest and incentives.
Yeah, okay. The research centers and the network. What areas should we focus more on in the future? Luc?
Well, there are probably many areas to focus on. I think we have to look at the European ecosystem where we need the innovation, and I think if we look at some of the broad areas, I mean, it's biotech, and then on the other hand, I mean, digital technology, which is kind of the topic of today. There is a lot of cross-fertilization between all of these domains. So I think what we should do is look in Europe where we can really make a difference by combining some of the strengths from various disciplines. That's basically also the strategy we're trying to implement, but it all builds on this foundation of digital technology, which builds on the enabler is chip technology, but then also link those very effectively to the end applications where Europe is strong, and that's medical, automotive, telecom, advanced manufacturing, and I think bringing those ecosystems together, as Roberto mentioned, as also Anna mentioned, is I think going to be very important for Europe.
Okay.
Yeah, are we still on top of the game? Because when you look at China, for instance, with the EV market, there's a bit of a panic within Europe and European automotive industry. Is Europe still ahead of things, or are we at the moment more trying to catch up? How do you look at that?
Well, I've been elected the one that should reply to this difficult question.
I can add.
Look, when it comes to the market of ideas, we are on top of the game. Maybe few know that the largest Taiwanese manufacturer of chips has been invented by the Europeans. It was a delocalization of Philips. So when you look at quantum physics, 2 out of 3 Nobel Prizes for quantum computing and quantum transmission and encryption are European. And the list is long. We invented the World Wide Web, we invented Skype, we invented the Spotify. So, and I think this is the case also when you look at AI, quantum, chips, think about the impressive work by IMEC and others. So in terms of being present, the forefront in the market of ideas, I think we are there. Mm-hmm. Where we have a gigantic problem is when it comes to the reality part, so that's why it's welcome this discussion, because actually our industries have not really made the step. So we have the innovation ecosystem, we have the startup ecosystem, not bad, frankly, with the huge problem scaling up, and an industry which is the sleeping beauty. So that's where the big problem is. Of course, they say, oh, but it's very difficult to do innovation in Europe, too many rules, and there's the absence of internal market. But I think they also should look at themselves and take the automotive industry, how to be better. Because the car of the future is not the car of today. Luc said it, it's a supercomputer on 4 wheels. So if you miss this, you will not be there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. No, I think it's true. I think we are, in Europe, we're always good at saying what is not going well, but we also have incredible strengths. I mean, when we talk about the chip industry, I mean, you cannot make any advanced chip without European technology, without European machines. I mean, ASML, I mean, no chip can be made in Asia without European technology, so we have phenomenal strengths, and I think that's the message I was trying to give. Let's build on those strengths. I think what we also need is, in some of the more incumbent big players, take enough risk, I think. So, because these are huge tankers, and it's really hard to change those tankers, and so I think incentivize risk-taking in some of these big organizations, I think, is what we need. The same with taking risk also in investments in the scale-up, so also make sure that we have enough public and private money that can be invested in startups. But in order to bring them to a scale-up level, as I was mentioning before, you have to take risk. Okay. If you always go from a de-risking approach there, you will not make the difference at world level.
Yeah, we need entrepreneurs who take risk.
Exactly.
Okay. Time's up, but I have one final question for the three of you. Europe's digital decade extends until 2030. How do you envision the next decade? Maybe you can answer in one sentence, just your vision for the audience. Anna.
Wow, this is a very easy question. I think, first of all, we see a huge impact of AI and disruption that is brought to the market, and I assume it will happen even in a more exponential pace. Also, there is apps nowadays that are already, able to generate code scripts and things like that. I think in the future we can expect, based on prompts, for AI to do very powerful stuff. So hopefully Europe will be on top of that game.
Okay, thank you. Roberto.
Well, of course, a question like this, to me, is a temptation to imagine, how we are going to control with our brain everything. But I would like to say, before looking at the world post-2030, if we miss the targets of 2030 yet again, then, really, this becomes a bit of a game for science fiction books, very nice, but not an industrial strategy. So Europe has been fixing the targets. We are not there. 20% of microelectronic production, 100% of fiber, 100% of real 5G. We are not there. There's still a huge gap, not to speak about the number of unicorns, not to speak about the number of talented people that we need. So my first plea would be, let's imagine together 2040, but let's deliver for 2030.
Okay, Luc, to conclude.
I fully agree. It's not going to stop in 2030, digital technology. We will have to just continue at even an accelerated pace to make sure we innovate in those sectors, because it's going to have an impact on virtually everything around us. I was talking about addressing all the big societal challenges. There will be a lot of challenges also beyond 2030, and we will need technology, deep tech, digital technology in order to address those. So we better be ready to be leading by 2030 so that we can continue.
Okay, thank you for your very clear vision. Thank you for the panel discussion. Give them a round of applause. Good, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of this opening session. The breakout session will start in a few minutes. Thanks to your access ticket, you can review which breakout session you are registered for.
And normally you can see here the layout with the various rooms where the sessions will take place. Participants of the Unlocking Synergy sessions, they may remain seated in this room. Those registered for AI in healthcare, they may proceed to the studio, which is next to the auditorium. The cybersecurity session will be held in the aquarium, and participants of the agri-food session, they should head to the cinema.
And everything kicks off at 10:45 a.m. and at 12:15 p.m. we will have lunch. Riyad and I, we are looking forward to the breakout session about AI in the afternoon, and at 4:45 p.m. we will come together in this room for the closing session. So we are wishing you a very inspiring day. Bye.